I get a lot of comments on, you know, I get off the bike and gas up or something. People are just like, wow, how do you ride that bike? And I'm like the fingerless biker, and, you know, kind of not really a legend, but I will be. I'm Scott. I also have an alias, Otis Spanky Menard. I was married in '95. I would say our relationship wasn't based so much on love as it was on chaos. We were both drinkers and drug users. Anyway, we stuck together, we kept drinking, and it was a lot of fun too. Then on August 5th, or August 6th of 2002, that all changed. I went to work that morning and I was spraying kills. All I had left was the kitchen cabinets, the top ones and the lower ones, to spray these kills in. I decided to knock off and go home. It was about 100 degrees that day, humid. And when I went home, I had asked Bambi, that was my wife's name, Bambi, if she'd make lasagna for dinner. And she said, yeah. Well, when I got in the house, it was so hot in there, considering how hot it was outside and inside. I don't remember who started the fight, her or me, but it just got, we were yelling back and forth. And so I started thinking, I'm going back to work. You know, and I don't know what time I ended up going back. It was a pretty sad thing. I was walking down the sidewalk out to my truck, and she was standing at the back steps yelling at me. I'm still yelling at her. The last thing I said to her was, I turned around, I gave her the finger. I said, "F you, I'm going back to work." And the funny thing about that is that was the last person I ever gave the finger to. So I got my truck and I went back to work. I set up my tools in the kitchen, you know, got the sprayer ready, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I must have pulled the lever on the sprayer, and the apartment, it just like, it exploded basically. It was a flash fire explosion. I don't know if I remember seeing the fire first or if I felt it first, but I remember seeing fire coming like from just everywhere, down from the ceiling, just all over. And it felt like bees were starting to sting my arm. And I started going, oh, you know, what's going on here? And then I realized I better get back out of this apartment. They don't know I have no idea what happened. They had fire inspectors from the Kills Corporation. They had the guy who I was working for, his insurance company had an inspector. Wagner, the type of sprayer I was using. The gas was on. If that might have had something to do with it, but they couldn't say for sure. They don't know where the spark, what the ignition source was, no. It doesn't really bother me. I don't care because, I mean, you know, the end result was this. Yeah. I could see the fire, like real fine flames just started coming up. And that's what it was like. They weren't, you know, like a campfire fire. It wasn't flames like that. It was, you could barely see them, but they were there. I talked to a fire inspector, and I asked him, I said, how hot did it get in there? You got any idea? And he said it got up to 900 to 1,000 degrees instantly. And a pizza oven is 600 degrees, so it turns out Kills is 8 times more flammable than gas. And what he also said about that is when it's that humid out, the water in the air will hold fumes down to the ground. He said about 3 feet.
And you were in a garden level apartment?
Yeah. Yep.
So you were a little bit below ground?
Yes. Yeah, and it wasn't even getting up to the window. So there was 5 gallons worth of fumes from all day held up in that apartment. Raised as a kid, they teach you to stop, drop, and roll. Well, that didn't even occur to me. And had I stopped, dropped, and rolled in that apartment, it wouldn't have done any good. I would have died. My first thought was, get the hell out of here. And I started running. I tripped and I rolled up against the neighbor's door here. And the only thing I could think of was it hurt so bad. You can't even imagine this pain. I rolled up against their door and I didn't want to get back up. I just said, this is it. And I was going to lay there and die. Now, this was kind of weird. Not everybody's gonna believe it. I might have a hard time myself, but something picked me up. Something, I don't know if it was in my head or if something actually picked me up by the scruff of my pants and back of my neck and pushed me towards the door out. And I ran out this front apartment door out into the street. And I mean, this all took place in just a few seconds too. It wasn't very long. I remember running down the sidewalk. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, I'm on fire, help, help. I didn't know who I was yelling.
Were you literally on fire?
Oh yeah, witnesses said it was just a great big ball of fire like what you see in the movies. And I saw what just freaked me out. I saw water running off my fingertips as I'm running and screaming. And my thought was, where the hell is all this water coming from? And then it hit me. I go, oh crap, that's my skin. It was turning into liquid and just running off my fingertips. I knew something was really, really wrong then. I don't know what. I didn't even know what to think, but it kind of freaked me out completely, seeing that. And I wanted to run home and see Bambi one more time and apologize for what I said to her when I left. 'Cause I knew I was going to die and I didn't want that to be the last thing I said to her. So I ran across the street and I collapsed. And there was a guy, he was out watering his bushes. His name was Jim Claron, and he was just, I'm so glad he was there doing that. And he ran over to me with his garden hose and he was screaming for me because he couldn't get all the way over to me. Screaming, get up, come here, come here. And I don't remember doing it. I don't remember getting up or going over there. But I remember that ice cold water hit, because all my skin was pretty much gone by then, or melted, and my clothes were completely gone. I had a little bit of my pants left, kind of like Daisy Duke shorts, that he said that was all that was left of your clothes. People said when my skin was sliding off my body in sheets, just sliding down my chest and my legs and my arms. But when that ice cold water hit my open flesh, that hurt worse than being on fire. That might have been what kept me alive. It might have jolted me back. I don't know. But it was, and I finally yelled at him to stop hosing me down because I couldn't take the cold anymore. And then, laying there, I told him, it felt like the fire started again, and it was just burning up. So I yelled, hose me down, hose me down. I remember saying that. And he did. Went back and forth like that, and I did find out later from one of my surgeons that had he not stopped hosing me down when I told him to, I would have died of hypothermia. And that to me is pretty messed up, being burned to death but dying of hypothermia. After he hosed me down and the fire was out, I remember standing back up, and I just started, I was shaking uncontrollably.
Yeah. So you could use your muscles, you could stand on your feet.
Yep.
Your feet were
not burned that bad. The bottom of my feet didn't get burned.
Okay.
My groin area wasn't burned. I still had my tallywhacker, which, knowing what I know now and as old as I am, I would trade that for a finger any day. And the top of my head wasn't burned. My face was burned, but that was all second degree.
And your back?
Oh, it's just like this, yeah. My entire torso is third degree. Everything was kind of like blurry. I remember that the people were blurry, the fire trucks were blurry. I couldn't figure out what was going on with all the commotion. I started saying, where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance? I needed an ambulance. I'm still thinking I'm gonna die. Someone said, the ambulance is here. I go, oh, good. And I turned around, and these two paramedics were just kind of like, oh. They didn't know what, how to pick me up, I guess. Well, I don't know exactly what their thought was, but they had a gurney with them. And I said, I can get up on that. I remember saying that so clearly. I can get up on that gurney myself. And I did. And it felt, that feeling was so incredible. It was cool. It was pure white. And that gurney was about this thick and so soft when I laid down. It was just like, I was sure I was going to die still, but it felt like it was going to be not laying in the street. The last thing I remember was getting slid into the ambulance on the gurney and seen the doors just slowly shut. I saw the 2 paramedics standing out there and the doors just went, it's like in slow motion and clang. And that was it. Initially, they said he won't survive the night. Then, after the night, I did survive. It blew people away. My odds went up to 3% for about 10 days. After 10 days of 3%, it went up to 10%. And that lasted for 2 months. But after 2 months of 10%, it went up to 50%. And then, about 2 weeks before discharge, they gave me a 98% chance of walking out of there. I was burned 3rd degree, 85% of my body, and they could only, when they did a grafting surgery, they could only use as much skin as it was healed. So most of my skin is from the top of my head. They shaved that twice and then cut the skin off of that. I ended up having 14 surgeries. I was in the hospital for 4.5 months. One of the worst experiences of this whole experience was the morphine. And because they gave me so much of it during my stay there that I had hallucinations. My very first hallucination was I got onto a city bus that had like an eerie green tint to it, like you see in horror movies kind of. And every seat all the way to the back of the bus had 2 firemen sitting in them. And I got on this bus and the 4 in the front, as I walked by, they took their hats off and they bowed as I walked, and this happened all the way to the back of this bus. And it just freaked me out. It seemed so real. It was just, I mean, it was real. But there was, and this went on for, well, I think they had me on morphine for 28 days. Something way deep back in there that told me this was not real. I just said to myself, this could not be real. This isn't life. And I think that's what kept me from going insane, because it felt like I was going insane. When I was in my coma, that's when they amputated my fingers. My fingers didn't burn off. My wife said they weren't getting circulation up to the tops, and they started dying and shriveling up black. And the doctors watched them really carefully. And she said they just came in and she had to sign a paper to say it's okay to cut off his fingers. But they did it almost to the second that they stopped dying. They just, those burn surgeons are amazing people. The first memory of consciousness I had is pretty cool. I remember looking at my hands and going, oh man, this really sucks. And I thought to myself, how am I ever going to canoe again? I used to take these really long canoe trips on the Upper St. Croix, and I thought to myself, I looked at my hands and I thought to myself for a little bit, and it came to me. I thought, if I can cut the top of my canoe paddle off and mount a snow shovel handle up there, and mount a bungee cord on the side of my canoe paddle, I can slide this hand in the bungee cord, I can put this hand in the snow shovel handle, I won't even have to grip the paddle. And this was my very first thought. It was like, it took me 2 years to finally try it, but I did. I went canoeing with some buddies and it worked. It worked perfectly. That was my very first thought. That's how I still paint too. I got snow shovel handles mounted on my rolling poles, so I can just slide my hand in there. And
yeah, like when I look at them, it almost looks like you have short fingers inside of a glove or something, because I can see the bones.
Bambi said after the surgeons amputated, they said he's going to be so grateful about how much we left. I couldn't walk either. That was another thing. I got what was called drop foot, where my heel cords let go and my feet went down. It was with therapy, tons of therapy, hours and hours, turned into days, weeks, months, about a year. It took me quite a while, but I forced every single step, every day, forced my heels down and down and down, and I did it. And pretty soon, before I knew it, I was walking flat-footed, and like a duck or the penguin. The burn bath was an incredible thing too. That was every day where they'd unbandage me, and it took 3 hours because they'd have to unbandage me, and then they'd have to get me in a gurney, get me down to the tub, and then they'd get me in this tub. It was a great big metal tank, stainless steel, and then they'd just scrub me. Every time they'd pick me up out of bed or put me back in bed from that gurney, because I felt that if they dropped me and I hit the floor, I'd have split like a melon. That was the feeling I had. It was terrible. The reason they let me go after 4.5 months was because Bambi had learned how to do my burn care at home. And that was another added thing on her life. She was pretty amazing for that.
That went on for months?
6 months. Jim, the guy who put me out with the garden hose, he came to visit me in the hospital a couple months after when I was starting to, become aware of things. He visited me. And one of the things he says, Scott, can you tell me why you had 2 of the same tattoo on the same arm? And I said, I didn't. I had I had a tattoo up here and one up here. And he says, no, you had a flaming skull on this arm, and you had it up here, and you had it down here on your wrist.
A flaming skull?
Yeah, it was a skull, flames coming off the back of the head and stuff.
Does that strike you?
No, but what strikes me is why I had 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it hit me that, because I was telling you about my skin sliding off, that tattoo had let go and it slid down my arm to my wrist. Then there's Freddy. Everybody has to have a Freddy Krueger. He's kind of my poster child. I got a weird sense of humor about this too. I used to drive up and down the alleys in my pickup truck looking for scrap metal. Mm-hmm. And it gets so hot in the summertime, and I started driving around without a shirt on. Some people would ask, what happens? People would, turn and look the other way or just pretend they didn't see it. I like the people that ask. It shows they have a little more something than the people who didn't or would.
So you don't mind being asked about your injuries?
Nah, not at all. That's too hot to wear clothes anyway. So, that's another thing. I lost my boobs.
I was actually wondering that.
They slid off, yeah. So this is what I look like, and there's my bag. That's the same.
All right.
The motorcycle, that's the latest thing. I never gave it much thought after the accident. I figured I just, I talked about it riding again, and I said I'm going to ride again. So I decided right then and there. And I started working my butt off, and I saved every dime I could possibly save. I ate a lot less, I smoked a lot less, and I saved up enough money, and I bought a bike. And I thought, how am I going to ride this thing? I met this guy that I'd never known before, and he started working with clay. He went around my hands with it, and when we put the hand grips on, they worked. They worked perfectly. Started riding around the house, and I was scared. And I put 2 miles on. I was riding clockwise and counterclockwise, and I'm going, I'm doing it. I got off the bike, I was shaking with just happiness. I called everybody.
And this was just a few years ago? Or?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago. Last year I put 6,200 miles on, and this year I got a little over 4,000. I haven't made a label for it, but I do call my birdhouses, or my company, or myself, whatever, -10. And that's because I'm missing 10 fingers.
How do you support yourself today? Do you get disability?
I get Social Security disability, and then I do the painting. I'm not painting 40 hours a week or anything. I got to work for a great guy who understands my situation, because I can't deal with the heat very well, so I have to work certain hours, and I haul scrap metal still. So that's how I support myself. I don't have a highfalutin lifestyle. I go back, I'm a SOAR volunteer now at Regions, and that SOAR stands for Survivors Offering Assistance in Recovery. We get to go into the rooms of patients, freshly burned patients, and let them know that life goes on. You can have a good life after this.
How long do you spend wishing you had your fingers back?
No, I don't spend any time.
You never did at the beginning either?
No. Nope, it would have been a waste of time. It's like, they're gone, I still look at my hands every day and go, what the hell? It's an amazing thing to not have them, but I never wished for them back.
You never said, if I just had fingers, everything would be...
No. Life goes on. I have 2 choices, or had 2 choices, both times, and that is I can sit in the shadows of my room and, go boo-hoo, life sucks, I can't do nothing, or just look at it like life goes on. I wanted to get out there and live. I hadn't seen everything I wanted to see or done everything I wanted to do, and life is such a cool adventure, you know? You just never know what's around the corner. It's gonna end someday, but I didn't want it to end then if I could do something about it. I get a lot of comments on, you know, I get off the bike and gas up or something. People are just like, oh, wow, how do you ride that bike? And I'm like the fingerless biker, and, you know, kind of not really a legend, but I will be. I really enjoyed this. I mean, as far as I could enjoy, I enjoyed the whole thing. It was an adventure that, you know, it's beyond anything. It's not something everybody does. I went through it and I lived, and I tell people I wouldn't trade this for the world.
You embrace the challenge, would you say?
Oh yeah, I was up for it. Let's bring it on.